Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Brewing with Jim.
And I'm Jim, and I say welcome
He made
as well.
it.
I made it. I'm
He
here.
made it. Could you imagine an episode of this show where it's like, and Jim's not here today, so it's just me. That is...
I can imagine
Yeah.
that. You know what? I have no... We haven't asked the question yet.
Of course.
But...
We're 20 seconds into this.
I know. Ronald Reagan...
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Was... first name Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
Dutch Reagan was sportscaster at WHO Radio in Des Moines.
Yep.
And he would broadcast the Cubs games in Chicago.
Yeah.
But the Cubs games had finished.
Yeah.
And he had the scorecard in front of him, and that you've got to recognize that in baseball, the scorecard has every play, every pitch, everything.
Yes.
And with audience noise edited in, he called the whole game. He broadcast the whole game.
Cow.
And I know that because my mother was the receptionist at WHO Radio in Des Moines when Reagan was there. She introduced me to him. And anyway, so yes, I can imagine what this podcast would be like without me. Probably
just to clarify, hold on. Just to clarify, Ronald Reagan would call a game on the radio going off of just the card.
That's what she told me. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and I went through the Ronald Reagan Museum.
The library, yes.
The library, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the right word.
Simi Valley.
And I read the placards that are on every display, and his time at WHO Radio in Des Moines, which was what's the name for it? It's full clear channel. It went all over the United States.
Syndicated?
No, it's not. No, they weren't syndicated. It was just a clear channel station that meant, I believe, no other radio station had that exact frequency to broadcast on.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so it went to many different places.
That makes sense.
Okay.
That's awesome.
And she told me that, yes, he called the games that way.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this has nothing to do with anything.
Not like literally nothing at all.
No.
Friends, this is the show where we haven't even gotten to this part yet. This is the show where we take your questions. We have questions submitted from our audience and our students and everything else. And we process them, we think about them, we talk about them,
Right.
We write notes and develop a plan, and then we come here to our podcast studio.
Yes.
And we try to do our best to give you advice, wisdom, answers, etc.
Right.
Mostly from Jim Brewington. Sometimes from me in some small ways, but it's mostly.
Well, it's not a small
Jim
way.
Brewington.
No, I think this podcast would be nothing without you.
Sure.
So we're a
Thank
team.
you.
We're a team here.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Our question this morning, I'm not sure where this necessarily comes from, but probably a student. The question is, one, I'd love to get like our marketing director in the studio for this one, or maybe our head of school or principal. It's a very good question. What is different about a Christian education?
Okay. That question may come from parents who are deciding where they should have their student schooled. I think what we might be talking about here, I have to speculate what the questioner is thinking.
Yeah.
But we might be talking about what is different about private Christian schools.
Sure.
From schools otherwise.
Yes.
Schools.
Or even homeschooling in some way. Yeah.
Well, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I am going to just speculate that that's what the questioner had in mind.
Same. I would have the same.
Okay.
I would have the same assumption.
All right. We talked about the difference between schooling and education in another episode,
That's right.
Previous episode.
That's right.
And the summary of that, well, not the summary, but a salient point of that was that Christian schooling or any schooling and any education is not necessarily the same. They're not the same.
Yes.
And it's possible to have either one without the other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go into all of that right now, but what do Christian schools have that other schools do not have?
Correct.
Sometimes people would say, oh, well, they have Bible classes, and that's the only difference. That is not the only difference.
They have chapel.
and they may have chapel.
They pray in the beginning of a class period sometimes.
I have been fortunate.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Yeah.
There are three things right there.
Sure.
I have been fortunate enough to have been on the faculty of 2 Christian schools.
Sure.
And this one, Capistrano Valley Christian School, CVCS rolls off our tongue just like the...
Yes, of course.
Okay. CVCS here. Let's talk about CVCS.
Yeah.
And I think it's exemplary of other Christian schools, but I can't be certain because they're probably as varied as they can be. Okay. Yes, we have Bible classes.
Yep.
And students have asked me, why should we be required to go to Bible classes? My answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
You go because it's a valuable, valuable resource. If you want to reject everything that's in the Bible, at least know what it is you're rejecting, learn it.
Sure.
And find out what's in there.
Yes.
You will learn in those classes why the Bible is, in my mind, indisputably the Word of God.
Yes.
That is to say, He has authored this, maybe not word for word, but concept by concept, and even down to the details. Yes, we have Bible classes. You will learn theology there, which is a theological word that means that means to talk about God.
Yeah.
Ologies.
Yes.
Ology, logo, God, word. Okay.
Absolutely.
To talk about God, you will learn about theology there.
Yes.
If you don't agree with the theology that is taught, the peripheral doctrines, not the core doctrines of salvation.
That's right.
About which Christians agree.
Right.
I would say even mandatedly have to agree because otherwise they're not Christian. But the peripheral doctrines, you will learn those. You can accept them or reject them, but at least, again, you know what you're talking about, what you're thinking about, what you're rejecting. Apologetics is the defense of our faith. God doesn't need defending. Our faith does.
Sure.
And you can learn apologetics and the reason why we believe what we believe in a Christian school.
That's right.
You can learn the Christian view of morality in a Christian school. Morality changes by location by time of the calendar over time. When I was younger, adultery, for example, was a felony. And it was against the law, and I don't know what happened, and I was too young to even know what's going on with somebody who was accused of adultery. Now it's the subject of sitcoms.
Sure.
And it's not, the morality in the world changes.
Yes.
The morality within Christianity does not change.
Sure.
It's an absolute. And the students will learn that so that they will have some basis to make decisions about ethics, about life choices, and they get that in a Christian school.
Yeah.
They will not get that in a non-Christian school.
That's right.
We teach lifestyle, and that lifestyle, if it's a Christian lifestyle, and that of course needs detailed definition.
Sure.
But if it's a Christian lifestyle, it will be presented to the students in content in classes, but also by watching the faculty live.
I was going to say, you were listing these things that happen in a Bible class, and you said Christian living, and I thought, that is not exclusive to Bible classes at a Christian
it is not.
school. That's a really cool fact. Anyway.
Let me just skip to that point.
Sure.
It wasn't the next in my thought, but nevertheless, we have all Christians on staff here, or at least professed Christians on staff here. We're vetted that way.
Yeah.
We want to have Christians interacting with the students, and then they can watch the Christians behave. Now, be careful with this one. We are an example of Christian living. We are not perfect at it.
That's right.
This whole school is staffed by sinners.
Yep.
And all the teachers are sinners. All the administration and so are all the students.
Yep.
So we have that in common, but that's going to be the same thing in a non-Christian school.
That's
Here, there's going to be guidance
Yes.
and a recognition of forgiveness and a recognition of God's acceptance
That's
without
right.
his approving of our behavior.
That's right.
Okay, so there's a difference, Christian staff, Christian schools. We have a Christian worldview that is our approach in our teachings.
Yes.
That is a biblical worldview. We see the world differently
Yeah.
than non-Christians.
That's right.
And the students will be able to recognize that. They're also taught a Christian worldview. The manifestation of love from the faculty to the students is a core value here.
Yes.
In a public school, no, it isn't. But we relate to the students. We relate to them individually. We relate to them in relationship. We regard them and should regard them, from my view, as friends.
Yeah.
There is an axiom in education that, remember, you're their teacher, not their friend.
Yeah.
No. The greatest, wisest teacher who ever lived calls me friend.
Sure.
And I would be honored to be friends with these students.
Sure.
The boundaries on those relationships are a little bit different. The core definition of that relationship is a manifestation of the love of Christ.
Yeah.
And we can teach the children, the kids, the students, what that is.
Yeah.
What that is.
That's right.
We are concerned as a faculty about the full life of the students.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
We want to know, and we want them to receive information, knowledge, training, teaching about everything about them.
Yep.
We know when it is revealed to us what the relationship with their parents is like,
Yep.
what their desires are, what the students' desires are, what their oppositions are to certain courses or certain people. All of these things that are part of a person, we are concerned about in this school.
We feel an obligation to care about the term that we use is the whole child.
Right.
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 Their academic success is but one piece of the way in which we really deeply feel obligated to concentrate on the development of a child.
Yes.
Academics, certainly, we're a school that's going to be there. Emotional health, social health, physical health, spiritual health, and then just the general balance between all of it, balancing time, balancing priorities, extracurriculars, arts, theater, sports. I would say that we feel an obligation in literally just about every imaginable area to some extent. You'd be surprised probably listening the kinds of things that it's so random that have come up that our administrators kind of jump on and say, oh, like we should be thinking of this. Like we should be providing our students with something here.
When something becomes known, too much homework, for example.
Yeah.
We respond to that.
Yes.
We're concerned about that. We don't have a system at CVCS where every teacher is, where their test schedules, for example, are known to everybody else.
That's right.
I kind of wish we did, but we don't.
Sure.
Well, okay, so if I schedule a test for my students, if they will come to me, I tell them this.
Yeah.
Come to me and tell me, I have 3 tests that week. In that, I'll change. I will move the test because I'm concerned about their home life, their social life. I'm concerned about the pressures that they have and how to relieve those pressures. I think in my private conversations with colleagues here, and by private I mean not in front of a class.
Sure.
That the heart of all of these teachers, I can't think of an exception, is the benefit of the students.
Absolutely.
And the care for the students.
Absolutely.
That is different than in public schools or in non-Christian schools. Okay. So
not to say, and to be very clear, not to say that there's no such thing as a public school employee that doesn't.
Oh, no, of course there is.
But you get it.
But we here are centered on that. We talk about that.
Yeah. And it's pretty universal.
It is. Yes, it is. Yeah. Yes. Okay. We provide an environment here that is Christ-centered. Mm-hmm. Other schools, by obligation, I guess, provide an environment that is academic-centered. Mm-hmm. Well, we're a little bit academic. I wouldn't call it centered.
Yeah.
We are student-centered. I don't teach a curriculum. I teach students. Mm-hmm. I don't cover a subject. I put understanding into the minds of students.
Yes.
And if I find that a student is not understanding, or a bunch of students are not understanding what I'm saying, I am not curriculum driven. I have a little wiggle room at the end of the year,
of course,
where I schedule it that way,
yeah,
so that I can spend time reiterating concepts, helping students understand, and so forth.
Absolutely.
So that's different, isn't it?
It
about
is.
Christian schools.
It is definitely
Certainly different about this school.
Definitely.
That's it. I don't have.
Oh man, yeah.
I don't have much more.
Yeah, I have several thoughts on this. I mean, I've worked in Christian schools for almost my whole career, and I went to public school until high school. I went to a Christian high school.
Well, me too. I'm a product of public schools.
Sure. And when I think of this question, my mind naturally jumps to, because I have a lot of conversations with administration. I have a master's in school leadership, and I think, and I've read a lot about kind of the marketing side of a Christian school. Think about the fact that, public schools don't necessarily need to market themselves. Their clientele comes to them very naturally. A Christian school has to go out and pursue its demographic, and they have to pursue their eventual, to use kind of an impersonal term, customers. We have to sell ourselves. We need a marketing department in some capacity. And so this question of what is different about a Christian school, we get asked every day. As our admissions director meets with prospective families, receives applications, gives tours of the campus, this question is at the heart of probably most conversations she has. And so we have to be well-versed, and I'm talking now just CVCS, individual Christian school, has to be well-versed in this question.
We do have to be well-versed. We are blessed here. We have a relaxation available to us in that we don't have to market as much as some schools do. We're fair. Full. We're full, and we have a waiting list. We don't have enough classrooms to handle more students.
That's right.
So there are students in line here waiting to get in. There is another thought about this. Parents want to know why I should put my student into a Christian school for all the reasons that we've already iterated about that. Yeah. But we have students here who are not Christians.
That's right.
And we like that. We want that. We want, because the interaction of our Christian students with non-Christian students is part of life.
Yes.
And we want their training there. Also, we have occasionally parents who have a difficult child in behavior, and they put them in a Christian school, and the idea is fix my kid.
Sure.
And you're a Christian school, you can fix my kid. We are not really equipped to do that with all kids. No, but there is that.
Yes.
That exists, and in the minds of those people, what are they thinking? They're thinking, "Oh, Christian school is going to that's a better environment."
Sure.
And maybe they will even be led to come into a Christian environment.
Academics is usually a big selling point for Christian schools.
So is athletics.
Depends on the school for sure.
Yes.
A lot of Christian schools are just super small, and they don't have
Right.
athletic programs that are very, let's say, good. I'm speaking
Winning.
generally. Yes.
Yes.
Academics is usually a distinction from public schools. Of course, private schools tend to perform better academically, and a lot of parents, including especially.
Did you mean academically or athletically?
Did I say?
You said academically.
That's what I meant to say.
Oh, okay. My mistake. Sorry.
A lot of parents send their students to Christian schools or private schools for a better, more rigorous academic program.
Okay, good. Well,
because
we are that.
We have higher college acceptance rates. I mean, that's just kind of that's just material
The statistical
fact.
Right.
What I want to articulate here is a distinction in potential ways that the uniqueness of a Christian school can be framed, because I want to be careful to not play into a fearful aspect in whether that be parents, students, or even ourselves as a school. Let me articulate it this way. There is definitely a sense, and I've heard parents and teachers say this before, that Christian schooling is important because it protects us from the world, or it protects us from those other people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what we can often, I think to our fault, what we can often articulate Christian schooling as, we accidentally frame it as a bubble. And I don't want to be that. And I don't think Christian schools should isolate themselves from society.
Well, of course not. I agree.
Culture.
Yes.
What a lot of parents that I have heard articulate is I want my students, or I want my kids to learn this common language, to be articulate in, whether it be doctrine, et cetera, for the purpose of being different, set apart from culture. And I get that tendency, but I do have a red flag with that in a sense, because we can't cut ourselves off from the world. We shouldn't be a
nor
bubble.
Should we.
Exactly. We shouldn't be a bubble. And I think at the heart of a Christian education, I want to articulate and kind of really put a line in the sand and say that service to the world is an important aspect of a Christian education.
I agree, of course.
And something that a Christian school should be highly, highly concentrating on. We call it service hours. We call whatever that looks like for different schools. I know Christian schools struggle often to articulate what that means and how to do that well. But we should not be a bubble.
We are interactive with the world, and
Yes.
having non-Christian students here helps us to do that and to be able to help our students know what the world is like. We are to be alert to the world's ways.
Yes.
And we can't be alert to the world's ways if we're in a bubble here and we don't interact with the world.
Yes.
The service hours that you mentioned are not just, in my mind, a checkbox that I have so many hours and the hours are necessary for my graduation.
Yep.
They really need to be they really need to be service from the heart and not from the requirement.
Yes.
I have suggested to my students various things they might want to do for service hours. And one that came to mind one day recently, this week, I think, was why don't you spend an hour or two in the Costco parking lot and just walk around and help people who can't lift some of the things they purchase into their cars for no benefit other than, may I help you lift that? Why don't you, I did suggest this too, why don't you go to a cemetery that is not well kept and make one of the graves attractive? Cut the grass, put some flowers in, because that might be a place where a relative goes to visit and they see that somebody has really taken care of this area.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things that are, I think, not commonly mentioned in service hours. Find a single mom who, this requires a little bit of censoring, but find a single mom who has a couple of kids and never ever can go with a friend to a movie and go out and babysit the kids.
Sure.
Now the mom has to be prudent about who I'm going to leave my kids with.
Certainly.
But the concept is valid.
Yes. So this is getting at like the crescendo of my thought, and you touched upon this briefly but perfectly. Don't send your kids to a Christian school for the express purpose of thinking, well, now they're protected, now they're set apart, different, etc., from the world, for lack of a better term.
This is not a monastery.
Exactly. Send your kids to a Christian school because you believe they will be formed into the likeness of Christ while they're there.
Yes.
It's a formative experience. It is not a box where we're like this and those people are like that.
Exactly.
It is a formative experience. We want to transform kids. Why is this sentence so hard to say? We want to transform kids' hearts.
Yes.
And their minds to be like Christ, above how well they know geometry and how well they can recite the preamble to the Constitution. And before they do any of that, we are a place that wants to form. Just the word form just keeps coming to my head. A formative experience.
We teach geometry.
It's not a common set of definitions.
No, it is not.
It's not a common set of doctrines. It's not about that.
But it is the approach and the worldview that we talked about.
It is.
The Christian worldview. We can teach geometry, but and angles and all the things that are the components of geometry, but we look at God in this.
It's wonderful.
This is just a description of God's universe. This is just a description of how we measure things that we observe here. See God in what you are doing here. That's a worldview that is not available elsewhere.
That's right.
Okay.
That's a tremendous place, I think, to wrap this up. We could both, I feel it, we could both go for a very long time on this. Something that we, of course, working at a Christian school, we think about this stuff all the time.
We do.
We are constantly interrogating ourselves as a school about what are we doing here, why are we here, what's our purpose, and how can we be better at it?
Yes.
So we could go on for a long time about this. Anybody on our campus could go on for a long time about this.
True.
But let's get to the surprise Jim question. This is the part of the show where I ask Jim a question that he doesn't know ahead of time, and this is super fun. Jim, the question...
Speak for yourself.
It is.
Yeah,
I am speaking for myself, and hopefully for our audience. Jim, the question for us today, or for you today, if you could have dinner with any 3 people, living or deceased, who would they be and why?
I don't. Well, you gave me some freedom in saying 3.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Don't let this blow you away. Bette Midler.
Okay.
She has a fantastic voice. She has done so much in show business.
Yeah.
She's a fascination to me. She is, and there are other entertainers but somebody from the entertainment field.
Okay.
We wouldn't have to speak Hollywood. We wouldn't have to impress anybody, or she wouldn't have to. I've always thought it'd be fun to have lunch with Bette Midler. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen, but that's one who comes to mind. I think that if I could, I don't have anybody else in mind right now. I would like to have lunch with somebody high in the United States government. And it wouldn't be political. Nobody would know we're having lunch. The person could be candid, and I could ask questions and so forth.
That'd be fascinating.
It would be fascinating to me. That is somebody, and there's controversy and scandal. I would maybe like to have lunch with somebody who is involved in scandal or has been the victim of scandal.
Yeah.
And there's certainly an abundance of those.
That's right.
And I think that would be interesting. I would like to have lunch with anybody who is highly skilled in a discipline and ask them how they got there. And just explore their personality and what they're like. That could be Yo-Yo Ma with the cello. It could be anybody who plays a musical instrument, but also people who are skilled in other things. There are people who, somebody has to change the tires on a 747.
That's right.
I think it would be fun to have lunch with one of those guys. And how did you get into this?
Yes.
And what do you do for fun? And I don't have names other than
That's tremendous.
Bette Midler. My goodness.
I love that. I think typically when people get asked a question like this, they jump to Abraham Lincoln, Napoleon Bonaparte, Jesus, Caesar, and it's just like I love that you have I think kind of thrown a curveball.
Yes, I have.
But thrown a curveball in the sense that you have responded with more kind of general areas, and not just general areas, but really kind of like down to earth. Borderline approachable.
My fascination
groups,
is with what makes a person what they are.
Yeah.
I could do this with almost anyone. When I have lunch with somebody, most of the time we're talking about that other person, not about me. And that is an interest to me. It's not a conversational technique.
Yeah.
It's not a social technique. It's a true interest I have about how did you get to where you are and what has happened to you in your life. And, yes.
Oh, it's fantastic. Well, I think that wraps up another episode for us.
There we are.
Thank you, as always, audience, for listening. It means the world to us that you would tune into this.
Yes.
And we want to, as always, extend an invitation to you to reach out to us, whether that be just to introduce yourselves and tell us about yourselves, or whether that is to, in fact, submit a question. The way in which we do that, can you tell them, Jim?
We do it by email primarily, maybe exclusively, and it's brewingwithjim@gmail.com. In our analytics, we see statistics about the podcast. One of the analytics that I enjoyed looking at is the location of the listens.
Yeah.
And they're called listens because that's all we can count. We can't count. We don't know how many people are sitting there listening, so it's not listeners. But
to be clear, this is silly, and you probably know this, audience. It tells us your location very generally. It's not your house. It's not your address.
It's the city.
It's the city. It's the city. Very generic.
And most of every once in a while, some little place will pop up, and there have been 18 listens in that little place. And I'm thinking, what is going on there?
Yeah.
If you're in that little place, let us know.
If you're that person who has listened to 18 episodes.
No. This is 18 listens on one episode.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because we can see the listens per episode.
Wow.
Per episode. So that is a curiosity to me.
That's fascinating.
I have lived in 7 different states, and I've been in all of them, and I've been in many, many cities and towns, and I see these cities pop up. I picture the intersections. I can picture the buildings in that town. What
wonderful.
I can't picture is the listens, and so give us some indicate. Okay, we've gone along too much with this.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Jim, as always.
My pleasure.
You, audience, for listening. And until next week, have a great week. Bye-bye.
Indeed. Bye.
The topics that are covered and the answers that are offered during episodes of Brewing with Jim are designed to mine the wisdom attained from a life of pastoral ministry and care. They do not constitute professional or clinical training or expertise in the areas of counseling or mental health. CVCS and its podcast network want to provide a platform for the discipleship of our community. Brewing with Jim is our attempt to foster that environment in a format that is accessible for everyone to participate in. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed during the show are the speaker's own, and they may or may not represent the views, thoughts, or opinions of Capistrano Valley Christian Schools or its faculty. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. This episode has been a production of the Capistrano Valley Christian Schools Podcast Network. Capistrano Valley Christian Schools is a Christian JK through 12 school in San Juan Capistrano, California. Be sure to check out, subscribe to, and leave a review of this show and the other shows on our network on your podcast player of choice. Doing so supports the school community in a multitude of ways. For more information about the CVCS Podcast Network or any of our other shows, check out cvcs.org or email podcasts@cvcs.org. On behalf of the whole network, this is Mr. Jasper saying thank you again for listening and stay tuned for more.